Hey, howdy y'all, it's Frightman, and I'm here with my new friend Hayden, who is a makeup artist. And today, he's going to be changing me into my icon, Frightman Frights. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get started.
So we're going to start with a pale flesh tone. We're going to work on the highlights on your face to bring out the facial features. I'm using a paint brand called Endura. It's an alcohol-based makeup.
So how did you get started in makeup?
Well, I started to work on makeup when I began working at 13th Floor Haunted House. They had an airbrush class, an airbrush painting class. I took the class. I found out how wonderful an airbrush is. I found out all the benefits of using airbrush paint and how quickly you can achieve a makeup design, especially for monster makeup. And through 13th Floor, I began experimenting more and more with airbrush makeup, and that's how I've become the makeup artist that I am now.
So right now you're laying down, you said kind of like a foundation color?
Yes.
And that's like a pink, like a skin tone?
No, we're using white right now to accentuate the highlights of the face.
Now, do you also use like grease makeups, or do you only use like airbrush?
I typically try to refrain from using grease makeup because grease makeup sweats off. Alcohol-based paint does not, because obviously the alcohol resists against water, so any sweat isn't a problem when using alcohol-based makeup.
So what do you find to be the funnest part of doing makeup at a haunted house?
I would say giving confidence to the actors and actresses when they go out to scare people. When they see a makeup design that they really like that I've made, it leads me to know that they are able to scare a bunch of people at the haunted house.
So when you're painting folks at this haunted house, do you have like a book that you follow from the design? Do you get to do what you want each night? How does that work?
Typically, we have a frame of reference, so if the actor is in a specific scene, like farmhouse scene, which is like a slaughterhouse, Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of themed area, or like a swamp scene, we'll typically make the makeup kind of based off the environment, so we call them zones. But typically we're allowed quite a bit of, we're given a long leash to work on makeup, so we can come up with pretty much any crazy design we want as long as it fits the environment.
So who would be some of your favorite makeup artists, like big names that we would know that kind of inspire you or you look up to them?
Tom Savini, Rick Baker, Jack Pierce, Rob Bottin.
Do you do more than painting, or do you only do painting?
Yes, I do. I also sculpt and paint. I also film and edit. I'm also an animator as well. I love animation, like stop motion animation. I'm currently working on a film with one of my friends at the moment, which is the upcoming horror film plans to work on.
If somebody wanted to try to get in to learn how to do airbrush makeup, is it difficult? Is it expensive? Like, what are you looking at just to get started from a price point?
I would say about $200.
Oh, that's not bad.
You can buy a pretty cheap compressor and a Wada airbrush to start out with.
So $200 to get you the equipment, but would that also get you some paint?
Yes, you can also find paint for a pretty good price. The Endura paint brand is pretty good. It can be a little bit pricey, but it's like what they say, the cheap man pays twice. When it comes to makeup, I've used some inexpensive brands of makeup before from local Halloween stores, and they They have only given me frustrations in the past. The best makeup you can find usually is through online websites. So now what we're going to use is a bruised color. We usually call this clot. We have funny names for the different colors we use for airbrush paint.
So what shade is this? Is it going over my eyes? I'm assuming this is going to be a darker, almost a black.
It's like a bruised color. I try to refrain from using black when I'm first applying makeup because black has a tendency to look flat and dull if you don't add other colors. Okay, for this part you can't talk. You need to keep perfectly still.
So let me ask you, so when you're coming up with like a new character, assuming that you do come up with a character, especially like for Halloween, because that's what the channel is about, yes. How do you come up with a new character? Like what inspires you?
Well, typically what inspires me when I begin working on makeup designs, usually I think of my nightmares. I try to think of the scariest things I can possibly think of. Usually I take a lot of inspiration from other makeup artists and sculptors. I typically look at traditional art, such as fine art, to use as a reference for makeup designs.
So you actually brought a monster that you made with you, right?
Yes, I did.
Can we take a look at that?
Yes, we can.
So you actually made this guy from scratch, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And so how do you do that? Like, what's the base? What's underneath here?
So what I initially did with the sculptures, I made a plasticine sculpture, used plasticine as an oil-based clay. And when you're using the oil-based clay, typically you want to work on top of an armature. Once you have the armature, you sculpt your sculpture, make the sculpture the way you want it to be. Then after you're finished, you make a 2-part gypsum plaster mold. Then you take liquid latex, pour it into the cavity so you have a latex skin inside. You pour a rigid polyurethane foam inside the head to fill in the void that's created once after you're finished pouring the latex inside the head.
And for the clothing, like this is really children's clothing, right? Like the shoes look pretty real. They don't look like props.
Yes, you can find all kinds of good things at the Goodwill.
Oh, well, that's a good place to shop for sure. We like being thrifty and saving our money and being creative, so that's a really good idea. Well, he's a cool character. Let me just bring him over here so y'all can see him. Does he have a name?
No, he doesn't.
You have not named him?
Maybe Chester.
That's a good name, yeah. So this is Chester, everybody. So is there a specific paint for airbrush, or can you use any type of paint?
You can use, personally I use only alcohol-based paints when I'm airbrushing. I've never used other types of paints. Personally, I think alcohol-based paint is the best because it's easy to clean out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use brown, yellow, and blue to create some pores and textures, some veins on your face. This will help bring out the initial facial tone. So it'll help create a little bit more depth, and it'll make it look, your facial features look a little bit less flat.
So if you had one choice to pick a movie, a horror movie, that has the best makeup in it, what would you pick?
Alien.
Aliens. Now that surprises me.
No, the original Alien.
Like with Sigourney Weaver.
Yes.
And honestly, I've seen it, but it's been so long ago, I don't really recall. So is it really for makeup effects, special effects, or because of the creatures?
Special effects and the creatures mostly, but I do like the creature design of the Alien. I like the work of H.R. Giger, the Geiger.
The haunted house industry has come a long ways, because whenever I was in my teens and visiting haunted houses, and when I was actually scared of them, you know, a lot of the costumes were just store-bought costumes. There was no makeup. Everything was masked. There was no set design. You would just go into a dark room, they turn on a strobe light, people would jump around, and that was pretty much it. So now, other than painting, sculpting, do you get into work with the audio or with the lighting?
Yes, I do, and also with the set design as well. I love building sets. I worked on a couple of sets for one of my friend's music videos.
Oh, really? Speaking of sets and what you worked on, if somebody wanted to look at some of your work, how would they do that?
They can go on my YouTube page, Hayden Geary. They can also look through my Instagram. It's _ Hayden Geary with lowercase h and lowercase g.
Have you ever designed anybody's makeup for, let's say, a haunted house, and when it was done, for whatever reason, somebody decided, no, that's too gory or that's too much, we're not going to do that?
Not so far.
No. Oh, that's good. So where you're working at, is gore a big thing or not so much?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, we have gore everywhere. I personally don't like to add too much gore to makeup and or props, just because I feel like gore sort of masks the artistic, like the sculpture, the painting underneath. I think it's easier to just add gore on top of a good sculpture and call it a day. Some people, I think, just go way too crazy with fake blood.
So perma-blood is not something that you have in your makeup kit.
Not at the moment.
Oh, but you do use it.
Yes, definitely.
It's not something you can spray either, right?
I do not recommend using it on live actors. It's good for props, static props, but getting perma-blood off your skin is almost impossible unless you use a lot of mineral spirits.
All right, so you're sitting there walking around painting me, and I noticed that your hands are pretty black and full of paint. Is that normal?
Yes.
You don't normally wear gloves. You normally get paint all over your hands.
Definitely not. Yeah, I never wear gloves when I'm working on makeup. I think it's the best way to paint, in my opinion. Wearing gloves feels awkward.
So doing this like to 10 people at night, I guess by the end of the night,
oh, my hands are covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Just curious. So what is the next step here, Hayden?
The next step is we're going to be painting your teeth. Going to make your teeth look nicotine stained, old, decrepit, horrible monster teeth. So I'm using a yellow airbrush paint for the teeth.
So is there anything special that I have to do for this?
You're going to have to wipe your teeth down to make sure that they're dry so the paint can adhere.
So I'm just going to use a tissue and just go through and dry.
Yes. Well, I think that's it.
So I am now Frightman Frights. Is that right?
I believe so.
Let's take a close-up here. So I want to give a thanks to Hayden here for this great makeup job, and hopefully you enjoyed seeing this get applied. And until next time, stay spooky, my friends.